Welcome to New Mexico Wildlife. I'm Bob Girding. Fishing in New Mexico, whether it's fly fishing for wild rainbows in the fall on the upper Rio Grande or jigging for bass in the winter on Ute Lake, we'll show you what's working for the pros. Plus, after disappearing from the wild for more than 3 decades, the howl of the Mexican gray wolf can once again be heard in the hills of New Mexico. Glad you could join us.
From Old Smoky Bear to the tranquil San Juan and Rio Grande rivers, New Mexico has long been the conservationist's playground. Among the most diverse ecological areas in North America, New Mexico has long offered families, anglers, and hunters a treasure of wildlife and recreational experiences.
The ongoing programs of the Department of Game and Fish play a major role in keeping this state wild. Please join us as we explore New Mexico's wildlife.
Welcome back to New Mexico Wildlife. I'm Bob Girding. Winter bass fishing can be challenging because it doesn't offer many of the telltale signs that anglers look for during the regular season. Things like structure and blooming vegetation. These are lean months where the food supply in lakes and streams is less abundant, leaving the fish no option but to hunker down deep. And that's where Brian Stengel and his crew comes in.
Thanks, Bob. This is Brian Stengel with ABQ Sport Fishing. I'm out here with Kevin Smith of Smith RV and Marine from Clovis, New Mexico, and Rob Bloom of the Tackle Box from Logan, New Mexico. We're at Ute Lake, 8,200 acre impoundment on the Canadian River, about 30 miles north of I-40. And we're jigging spoons for white bass, walleye, crappie, and catfish.
And how about that? The white bass arriving on cue over Brian's shoulder as we began taping this segment. That was a small clue on how things are turning out today. Winter fishing is not for the meek, but when you start catching, you forget all about what time of year it is. First, Rob.
Fish on. Here we got Kevin, look. The white brophy spoon. This feels interesting. Feels good. Nice white. Yep. It's on a brophy spoon. It's a good example of a white in here. It's about 1.5 pound fish right now, but numerous fish in this lake. You can see his just beautiful shape, his fins.
Then Kevin.
Make it a wally. Make it a wally. How's that feel, Kevin?
Feels good, huh?
Oh, I've missed a couple here in the last minute.
Then Brian.
Wow. I must have snagged him in the side. Giddy up. Lip hooked.
He's a nice one.
He just about tore my shoulder off. I guess when you put it above your head like that, you're just giving him a chance.
Want to know why the white bass are so excited today? You could say it's the luck of the Irish.
Kind of spoons we're fishing with today are Leprechaun Lures jigging spoons, and they come in a variety of different shapes, colors, and sizes. Basically, it's a lead spoon with either a number 2, a number 4, or a number 6 hook. They can be curved, and we put a little prism eye on it, and don't know if you can see this on camera or not, but a little bit of metallic paint there on the white ones. And then they come in all different shapes and sizes. Minnow shape, more of a minnow style slab spoon. A little bit of glitter paint on them, and you can see that These particular leprechaun spoons have different bends to them to get different actions on the fall, and they'll generate a little different reaction from the fish at different times of the year. Faster fall, slower fall, and directional fall that they can shoot out or go straight up and down.
Need we say more? These guys limit it out. You can look up Brian online at abqsportfishing.com and make sure you stop by and see Rob at the Tackle Box in Logan on your way to Ute Lake. He'll hook you up with whatever they're biting on.
Ute Lake State Park is about 200 miles east of Albuquerque via I-40 and Highway 54. It's just outside the village of Logan. And remember to pack accordingly for these winter trips. You never know when a sunny day will turn stormy on a moment's notice. Up next, the Call of the Wild in the Gila. The Mexican gray wolf has been all but eliminated from the western landscape for the last few decades, prompting its listing as an endangered species. But now, thanks to wildlife biologists, it's making a comeback.
It was more than 30 years since New Mexicans had heard the howl of the Mexican gray wolf, but thanks to a recovery program led by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the once nearly extinct Mexican gray wolf is back. As wolves came into conflict with livestock operations and other human activities, private, state, and federal extermination policies were carried out against the wolf until it had been all but eliminated from the United States and Mexico. In 1976, the Mexican gray wolf got a new lease on life when it was listed under the Endangered Species Act. The Apache and Gila National Forest in eastern Arizona and western New Mexico were identified as sites for reintroduction.
By the time the captive breeding program was started, there were only 7 Mexican wolves alive, and so we've gone from 7 Mexican wolves in the late 70s to early 80s to about 300 wolves in captivity today.
The program started in 1998, and today there are 50 wolves roaming wild. So how can you tell the difference between one of these wolves and a coyote?
A Mexican wolf is similarly colored. They have a very similar coloration pattern, but they're a lot bigger. A Mexican wolf can weigh between 50 and 80 pounds. Coyotes tend to have a skinny, longer snout, and a Mexican wolf has a more short and blunt nose. Same with the ears. Coyotes tend to have these really funny, big ears, and wolves have sort of rounder, more robust ears.
And there are other differences, including body size. And because the wolves are innately afraid of humans, the task of relocating them has to be handled with care and caution.
When we translocate wolves, first we need wolves to translocate. Those are typically animals that have been removed from the wild for one reason or another. Oftentimes they're re-paired at one of the pre-release facilities, so a male and a female will be paired together for a subsequent translocation. And there's a lot that goes into it from there, primarily finding a release site and building a mesh release pen. Most of our translocations do occur in the Gila wilderness, so that often entails packing the materials in on mules to the release site, building the pen, packing back out, packing more materials in until the pen is ready. And once the pen is ready, we'll go into the pre-release facilities and capture the animals and put radio collars on them, give them fluids, draw blood if we need to, give them their vaccines. This capture usually happens kind of late afternoon or early evening. We capture the wolves in the pen by using their fear of humans to our advantage. We'll walk in a line. We'll usually have about 10 or 15 people helping us, and we'll walk in sort of a human wall, we call it, and we can push through the pen, and just because they're afraid of us, they'll tend to circle around one area of the pen where there's either a tree that they'll dive under or a capture box that's kind of like a dog house. It's got a door on one side and they go in there thinking they're hiding, but we can close the door that they entered in and actually lift the lid off and pull them out that way.
The wolves are kept well hydrated during the relocation process, and the service has high hopes for the pair they are releasing into the Gila.
We've had some reports where people have been really elated to hear the wolves howling at night, and some reports of just the presence of wolf, but no complaints yet. And we have personnel in the area that are actually trying to haze them sort of more, back into the wilderness area where they should be.
And Maggie has her own personal reactions to the program.
It's a little nerve-wracking. It's a little, your ability to control the situation is over, and you sort of have to just wish them luck and hope they don't get into conflict situations and, cross your fingers. So, the scientist side of me says, 2 more or 4 more, and the emotional side of me, wishes I could do more for them.
It's a 20-mile trip into the Gila wilderness for this pair, and thanks to the combined efforts of many agencies, biologists, and volunteers, the Mexican gray wolf is winning the battle against extinction.
And the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service realizes that reintroduction of a top predator, such as the Mexican wolf, is highly complex and often controversial. It is important to understand the role Mexican wolves are playing on the landscape, including all of the potential biological, social, and economic impacts, be they good, bad, or indifferent. For more information, you can Google Mexican gray wolf recovery. That will direct you to the Fish and Wildlife Service's Wolf Recovery Program. Up next, the Cast Iron Ranger is firing up the Dutch oven. Sourdough biscuits are the perfect staple for any camp. Biscuits and gravy, biscuits and jam, have it your way. The Cast Iron Ranger shows us how to prepare them in a Dutch oven.
Welcome, I'm Dan Brooks, the Cast Iron Ranger, and today we'll be making sourdough biscuits. It was the staple of the 1860s. You can carry this around and make it at any time, doesn't even have to be refrigerated. It starts with a sponge, or called the starter, and it smells like beer. It's got yeast in it, but we're gonna mix this up and we're gonna make some biscuits, and it's gonna be good. All right, what we gotta do is we gotta take our sponge, we're gonna put that out, we're gonna scoop some of that out, and we're gonna mix it with our dough. You need about 2 cups, all right? And it doesn't look like much right now, but it will here in a minute. All right, we're gonna mix our flour with this because we've got this starter and it smells and it's alive. It's got yeast in it. Now we're gonna use a couple of these and we're gonna start mixing this with it. All right, this is a pretty simple recipe. I use about 2 cups and we're just gonna mix it with it. All right, and we're just gonna start mixing it up here. Now, I will tell you that if you don't like the texture, add a little more. That's the great thing about sourdough, is you can't hardly go wrong. If you don't like the texture, add a little more. And I'm going to add just a little more because I want to make a decent amount of biscuits. So we're going to add just a little more. And we're just going to keep mixing this up. We're going to just keep folding it over, mixing it up. All right, now what I like to do is add just a little tablespoon of this. And that's all this is a tablespoon. We're just going to put enough in here to give it just a little flavor. We're going to do the same with the sugar. I've got this is sugar, the other was salt. We're going to just put a little bit in here, and I'll tell you how I cook is a little dab of this and a little dab of that. If it's a pinch, it's a teaspoon. If it's a dab, it's a tablespoon. So we're going to put a few tablespoons of sugar on here. And now what we're going to do is a dab of baking powder. That's all you need, because this is going to help our biscuits rise. That's it. And now we're just going to work it in some more. Let's just keep working it in. Spread it out, work it in, just keep folding it over. And we're going to do this for a few minutes now. Okay, now I've got this flattened out, and what we're going to do is we're just going to cut this up a little bit, because these are going to make our biscuit balls. Yep, biscuit balls. But that's going to be what we need to put in the Dutch oven. We're going to roll these up in about the same size balls, and then we are going to butter them up. All right, I finished the rolls. We're gonna go ahead and let them sit for about 30 minutes. We're gonna cover them, get a little rise out of them. Then we're gonna dip them in butter and put them in the Dutch oven. It's been about 30 minutes now. You can see our biscuits have risen up a little bit. Now what we're gonna do is we're going to put the shortening in our Dutch oven. That's first, that's gonna be critical. We gotta get a little shortening in there. And when we do, we're just gonna lube up this pan. We're just gonna spread that around because we're getting ready to bake sourdough biscuits. Our next step, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take these and we're just gonna smash them flat. See how they get a little flat there? Now we're gonna take our margarine. Ooh, we're gonna dip those in there, turn them over, place them down. Smash another one, dip them in there. And you're gonna leave about 1 inch in the pan, 1/2 inch between biscuits. Okay, that's the last one. There's about 9 in there. Now we're gonna put the lid on, put them on the coals, and make sourdough biscuits. All right, we've got the lid on it. We're gonna carry it over to the coals now. And I've already got my coals started on the bottom. Now the thing to remember is you're only gonna leave the coals on the bottom for about 5 to 7 minutes, while the top we're gonna put coals on it and it'll be about 20 minutes, because you don't wanna burn your biscuits. I like to evenly space these coals out. And you're gonna not forget, you gotta turn your lid about every, 3 or 4 minutes, just to make that heat real even. It's been about 7, 8 minutes, and we're gonna go ahead and just move this off these bottom coals so that we can still have the top cook, but we don't want the biscuits to burn on the bottom. And don't forget to turn your lid. That's gonna be important too. Got to be careful of the ash, but turn that lid, about 1/4 of a turn. Every 5 minutes is all you need. It's been about 20 minutes. These biscuits are going to be ready. I feel it. I can smell it. We'll just put them up here, very carefully. Ooh, everything's so hot right now. Now I want to show you this, and here's the secret. When you look at that, golden brown on top, but if you'll notice, bottoms, not burnt. Beautiful, beautiful. There's only 2 things left to do, and that's to butter our biscuits and eat one. Oh, that's good. Oh, that is good.
Thanks, Dan. If you have a recipe you'd like Dan to try, you can email him at thecastironranger@state.nm.us. Up next, wild rainbows on the upper Rio Grande. Welcome back to New Mexico Wildlife. I'm Bob Girding. According to expert fly fishing guide Taylor Strite, fly fishing on the upper Rio Grande can be second to none if the fishing pressure is realistic. You may want to put on your hiking boots to get to this spot.
We're here on the upper Rio Grande, Taos County, New Mexico, and the river's kind of high, and the case is that for the last couple of years with all the rain we've had, it's filled up the river and made it dirty an awful lot. So we haven't got to fish it that much and guide it. So we're going to see if we can't pull some fish out of there. So what we'll have to do is go deep.
Hall of Fame fly fisherman Taylor Strite knows these waters. He's been guiding them for decades, and he knows what he's come here to catch.
It's somewhat of a misconception that you're fishing for big brown trout in a lot of the upper Rio Grande, and they are here, but what we're really after is rainbows from 15 to 20 inches.
Angling on the upper Rio Grande in the Wild Rivers Recreation Area north of Taos can be the trip of a lifetime once you get there. You see, the river has cut an 800-foot deep chasm through this volcanic canyon, which translates into a mile-long steep trail on foot to get started. While gearing up, Taylor reveals a secret to fishing these waters.
Okay, now, I'm going to do something I haven't done for a while, and that is set up this kind of odd deep water rig where I'm going to run some braided Dacron, this stuff here, to monofilament and a 1X tippet. And what that does is allows you to get deep real fast. Whereas you have a tapered leader, which we normally use, and I normally use, but the tapered leader is a kind of will be rather thick, so it doesn't descend, doesn't sink real fast.
The canyon floor is littered with huge volcanic boulders one has to navigate to get on the river. With 2 flies on, the Poundmeister and a big black woolly booger, Taylor wets his line and shows us his technique for casting 2 flies.
You'll notice that I try and keep it all tight all the way around as I go around, okay? Otherwise, it's going to get horribly tangled. So I'm keeping it tight as it comes all the way around in an oval, like so. It's not very noble fly casting, but it's the job done.
And it isn't long before Stripe moves up into faster waters and gets his first strike.
Got one. Got the line around my foot too. Oh, he's not big. He's not too big, but it's a fish. Wild rainbow. You can tell it's wild because of these par markings on the side and the white tips on the fins.
With the skunk off, Stripe knows the fish will eat despite the fact he doesn't see much activity on the water. He's fished these waters for 40 years. He moved to northern New Mexico after learning to guide in the Adirondacks back in the 60s. After opening the Taos Fly Shop in 1980, he's been guiding ever since. Nowadays, it's a family affair, with his son Nick and wife running the store and a young expert in his own right. Taylor also knows where there are small fish biting here, bigger ones should follow.
There we go. It's a good one. Sometimes you fish something from a little different spot and you get different results. Okay, this is a pretty big fish, so we need to fight him on the reel. He took the Poundmeister. About 16 or 17 inches, I think. Maybe bigger. I want to pull him against the current. And hold him up. And use a big net. Fortunately, he's staying in this pool. A lot of times they'll run off on you, and then they become pretty hard to get, but he's close. Finally, we catch a nice rainbow. I'm gonna have to cut the line here. I wanna do it fast. The water's cold, so should be okay, but I think we got it now. Hooked in a very difficult spot. There, finally. There we go. Put him back here so that he's make sure he's okay. You want to revive him by pulling him back and forth at a speed like this. You can see what my hand's doing, and you want to do it in calm water. So the water back in here, and then I can feel as I pull him back and forth when he starts to get strength. There he goes.
The smile on his face says it all.
Taylor's also the author of a handful of books, including Fly Fishing New Mexico, an illustrated guide, and his latest, Man vs. Fish, published by the University of New Mexico Press. For more information, log on to straightflyfishing.com. And we'd like to thank the New Mexico Department of Game and Fish for their dedication to conservation and education of New Mexico's most precious natural resources, New Mexico's wildlife.